About a month and a half ago, I had my Rolex Explorer serviced, and when I received it back, I put it on Time Grapher just like any good watch enthusiast does. And then I started wondering about the rate and what the heck all of that meant, and what does COSC mean? Mainly, what are those specifications? How can I find out if mine is still within those specifications, and how can I share that with everyone here? So I underwent 15 days of testing this watch. Now, on the surface, 15 days sounds like a lot of time, sounds like a lot of effort. I'm gonna go through everything that I went through, all 15 days, and exactly what needs to get done on each of those days, what the testing requires, and how you potentially could COSC certify your watch should you choose. The basic things you're gonna need: a Time Grapher and an incubator. Sounds strange, but those are the two things you need to COSC certify your watch. The incubator I used was this one I found on Amazon. It's about $300, and it basically allows you to regulate the temperature from, I think, a little above 0 degrees all the way up to 60 degrees Celsius. All you really need is an incubator from 8 degrees to 38 degrees and everywhere in between. That's what you need in order to COSC certify. So now I recorded some videos throughout this of me as I was testing it, but frankly, the video footage got too long. So I'm gonna intersperse every so often. Day one, I basically just check the watch. The main things you need: the first 10 days of testing. I'll show you this chart. This is an Excel chart. You can download this. If you go down below, you're gonna find my website. If you put your email in, I'll email you the Excel sheet to be able to put in your watch's rate measurements and then see if you're COSC certified next to each of the qualifications. So the first thing you're gonna do, day one, right out of the box, you're gonna check the watch in 5 different positions. That's 6 up, 3 up, 9 up, dial up, and dial down. So the last position, number 6, is not included. That's 12 up. The normal facing, looking at a watch like it would be a wall clock. That's actually not one of the positions that they test. So those 5 are the positions you're going to test. You're gonna find the rate in each of those. You're gonna write that in the grid over here on the right-hand side. And then you're gonna wait 24 hours, putting the watch in an incubator at 23 degrees with it in the first original position, which is 6, or the vertical 6 up. So you're gonna do 2 days of 6 up, 2 days of 3 up, 2 days of 9 up, 2 days of it facing down, and 2 days of it facing up. And all this is looking at is positional variance, both across 48 hours, each of them segmented into 2 separate days, as well as positional variance on each of those days. So you're checking to see over the course of 10 days in each of these 5 positions whether or not the watch is going to change how it varies. And that's essentially the first 10 days. That's the picture. I don't want you to worry about the results. As I said, we'll get to those at the end. Right now, we're just looking at data entry. What data do you need to have in order to go through this testing? All right, so day 3 is over. So end of day 3, I checked it in this position here. And again, you can see kind of what I'm doing. So I check it against the G-Shock here. And if you look at the time on both of them, you'll see that it is now 7 seconds shy. 6 of those seconds are from the first 2 days. So -3 first day, -3 second day. So it was total -6. At that point, it is now -1. So in this position, it was only -1 over the course of the day. You can see me entering it there for day 3. And then now I'm gonna do positional variance again in all 6 positions. I haven't shown this in every single day, and I won't show it in every day after this, but you can kind of see what I mean by all 6 positions of positional variance here. You can also see a little bit of my workshop. So I got some watch stuff there. But as I checked here, you can see what I mean. So this is position 1, or what I'm gonna call position 1 at the moment, which is a 3 o'clock up. I'm flat, 0. This is 9 up. Also, I have been winding the watch. So every single time I look at it each day, I've been winding it because otherwise the power reserve would drop below 50%. You can get some variance just from that. And I don't know if they actually see, now I'm at 0. So if it's way, all right, -2. I'm gonna stick with -2. So -2 in that position. And then the last horizontal position would be 6 up. So we've done 6 up, we've done 3 up, we've done 12 up, and we've done 9 up. That's 4. Then we do, it's -3 in that position. Then we do dial up. That's position 5. That's a 0. It looked pretty flat. And then we do dial down. So that's a 0. So that's essentially what I mean when I'm checking each of the 6 positions. I'm checking, turn that off. I am checking 9 up, 3 up, 6 up, 12 up, then dial up, and then dial down. That's each of the 6 positions that I check every single day. Now day 11. So you're done with positional variance. You don't have to worry about testing for each of those 5 rates every single day anymore. Now this stage is all about thermal regulation. So you're gonna put the incubator down to 8 degrees Celsius, place the watch in there, horizontal, facing up, and then you're going to test the watch. Sitting in that position for 24 hours, what the deviation is that relates to temperature. Day 12, think of it as a breather. Essentially, you're gonna look at what the rate deviation is over a 24-hour period with the dial up at 23 degrees Celsius. This is to get everything back to the way that it was. If the cold temperature actually changed the way that a watch operates, you wanna make sure that you get it back to an even medium and then to go to the high temperature. Day 13 is the high temperature, 38 degrees Celsius. Now people may ask me why 8 degrees and 38 degrees Celsius. I have no idea, but that is what COSC does. They look at the rates in those 2 temperatures. Again, horizontal dial up, then you're gonna look at the watch 24 hours later at 38 degrees Celsius. Day 14 and 15 are about rate resumption. So after all these temperature changes, these positional variances, all this other testing you've done, you're gonna go back to the beginning. You're gonna go back to 6, a vertical 6 up, and you're gonna look whether or not the rate has changed in that position. And that's called rate resumption, how quickly it resumes back to the rate that it was in the beginning. And how different is it now versus what it was in the beginning? How consistent is it basically? And so here, day 14 is actually mainly a breather because it's not included in the calcs. But again, you go to vertical 6 up, and you leave it there for 24 hours. And then day 15 is the last day. That's the day that matters in terms of the rate. So that's the 15 days testing. So the results, the Explorer, I think, performed quite well, so surprisingly well. I assume my Explorer would perform well, but the results that I actually got were better than I had originally even expected. So test number 1 is looking at the rate, the average rate of the first 10 days. Just looking at each of those and finding out, is it within COSC specifications? Now this is more of top line what you see. So when they mark it, it's within -4 +6 a day. That is essentially what they're talking about. They're talking about, is it on an average in all 5 positions that we looked at, is it within -4 to +6? Now that top line also would translate over to Rolex. Their superlative chronometer testing, my assumption is that that is the rate they're also looking at, meaning that this average rate for these 10 days needs to be between -2 and +2, which this Rolex Explorer is within. Test 2 is looking at those 5 positional rates every single day for the first 10 days. It's looking at those 50 points of data. Let's look at the average variation in rate. So essentially what that's looking at is the average of all 50 data points. And then you're looking to see of an absolute value of that. So if it's -2, we're looking at a positive value. So variance as a positive. So the absolute value of the average of all those rates needs to be lower than 2, so between 0 and 2. And the Explorer, again, is within that, it's at 0.78. Also, as I said, if you download this Excel sheet, you'll be able to see more of this information, you'll be able to see what the formulas are, and it might help you a little bit also in making sure that you understand what I'm talking about. Test number 3 is the max variation in rate. And so you can look here at this data point. Every 2 days, we changed position. So the variation in rate is basically the difference or the variation in that same position. So day 1, for example, is -3. If day 2 was -4, the variation would be -1, meaning that it changed by 1 second from one to the next day within the same position. And so you can see on this column here, I have these 5 values. These are the variations in each of the 5 positions. And so we're looking at the max value of these rates or these variations, and then we're taking it back and making sure that that is lower than 5, which again, the Explorer is 1.2, so significantly less than 5. And that variance in position has a lot to do with how consistently accurate it would be. Test number 4, super simple. You're looking at the difference between vertical and horizontal. So in this case, what that means is I took the average of the horizontal position and I subtracted out the average of the first 2 days in the vertical position, and that gave me the variance. Now they allow between -6 and +8 variance from horizontal to vertical. So a relatively large spread, at least in this case. And the Explorer was at 2.4, so well within the spec for that test. Test 5 is essentially like, if you look at statistics, it's like a spread, right? Imagine a spread. So you know the average rate was what we did in test 1, which was negative 1.29. You're looking at what is the biggest difference from, what was the furthest away from negative 1.29? What was our biggest outlier, essentially? That was day 5 and negative 5. And so the difference between the largest outlier and the average is the answer here. In this case, you're looking at 3.79 seconds. A Kosk testing allows up to 10 seconds difference between the average and the largest outlier. We're almost done here, so just bear with me. Thermal variation, and essentially the calc is here on this. You're looking at the rate cold and the rate hot. So you're gonna take the hot temperature, subtract the cold temperature, divide by 30, and that gives you the number, the answer, essentially you're looking for here. And they allow between plus or minus 0.6 seconds. This is one of those tests I think is misleading. If you look up online, it says that Kosk only allows thermal variation of plus or minus 0.6 of a second. You're gonna think, holy crap, that is, that's great. Even if they just say plus or minus 0.6, you'll assume that means seconds, and you'll think, wow, it's really tightly regulated, hot and cold temperatures, much hotter and probably much colder than what they actually use, really don't vary it that much. And that's why I kind of wanted to do this video, get in the weeds and tell exactly what testing they do. If that impresses you, great. If it doesn't impress you, that's fine too. At least you have the information. The last test. Essentially what they do is they look at the first day and the last day. I talked about this earlier, first day, last day, and what is the difference between those two. So in this case, it was -3 the first day, it was -3 the last day. So it was very consistent on that front. So I have a 0 difference, so rate resumption is perfect, no issues there, test cleared. So after all 6 of those tests, that means technically, while I'm not chronometer, Kosk employed or anything like that, and I don't have, the jurisdiction, I suppose, to say it, my watch would pass Kosk testing if I sent it to them and they did all their tests and they charged me a bunch of money, my watch would pass. Now this leads into the very last question of the whole thing. People may ask me, why don't more companies have their watch Kosk tested if it's this easy? If you think these tests are easy, then that would be the question. In my mind, the biggest reason is because of expense. You have to send your movement there. You have to probably pay them because they have to pay their employees to do the testing, right? So it's not just sending it there, but it's also paying them to do the test. For example, here in the United States, we have a county called Miami-Dade County. Now I do building products for my company. We have to send them our product and they have to charge us to do all these tests on it to see if it can handle the wind loads in Miami. Now I know that my product can handle it, but the tests alone would cost us about $70,000. And that's just preliminary numbers before they have any issues that cost us more money. There's a reason why companies think, well, $70,000 I could probably put into other things like R&D, better equipment, more employees. And that would be better served than $70,000 for just one test. So that, I would say, is the biggest reason why most people don't do Kosk. If you are interested in doing your own, as I said, sheet is down below. If you're interested in this sort of content, do me a favor and subscribe. Any questions, leave them down in the comments. I'm gonna try and answer them, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.